So I was hesitant on doing this video right now, but I think it's a good time. Fuck it. But a lot of people uh, ask me, you know what I mean? When I tell them I'm adopted, they're like, "Oh, so have you found your parents?" You know, the thing is, the only parents I know are the parents that I was raised with, and honestly, that's all you really know. That's the thing about being adopted. It's all you know is what you were raised. If you're adopted like me, as a baby, like many other adoptees from the country that I'm from, Colombia, that's all you really know. And so you have to put yourself into another person's shoes because adopted people. Now, again, what I'm saying now, guys, this is going to cause a lot of controversy. It may not. There's people in the adopted community that may agree and may disagree. But, when you're an adopted person, you stand out hella much. You're different than hella people. You know what I mean? The only people that can really relate to you are other adopted people. And that's if they experience the same things that you experienced. You know what I mean? Because there's others that may not have experienced that same thing. And, they blended in. They, what I mean, were fine or whatever. You know what I mean? So what I wanted to say was, when people say, oh, da, 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 have you found your parents and blah, 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 blah. The answer is I have not found biological family. No, I have not. You know what I mean? And you have to understand that's all you know. My name, all I know is I'm born in this another country. I know I look different growing up. I was different than everybody in the area that I grew up in and all that shit. But like you only know so much, and then you're limited too because if you're in an open or closed adoption, you know what I mean? And there's all kinds of things. But you have to put yourself in that person's shoe for a second and think of if you were a certain person, you know what I mean? Born in a certain country where they don't speak the language that you're living in now. It's a whole different culture, your whole different ethnicity, a whole different way of life. You know what I mean? Living and just how they act and do things and everything, traditions and all that shit. And then you're put into this other, for me, American, and all you know is this American traditions and things. You know what I mean? That's all you know. You know what I mean? Now with doing research, you learn about your culture, you learn about that stuff, but you're not brought up with your culture. You're not brought up with your native language, your native culture. You're not brought up into these things. So you're missing a huge element, you know what I mean, of what other people may have. You know what I mean? That are from that country that maybe were raised here, but they still have that culture, if that makes sense. So you have to really think about that. You're growing up a lot with, no identity, constantly not sure who you are and shit like that, and people saying, oh, you're this and you're not that, or you're this and not that. You know what I mean? For example, people might say, oh, you're American, you're not Colombian. You don't know anything about Colombia. Then people might say, you don't speak Spanish. You're not Latin or whatever. You know what I mean? And then you get other people that will say, oh, you're Latin, you're Colombian, then you're, whatever. You know what I mean? And all this other stuff. Like, what I'm saying is you can never really get balance both sides. People will say this and that. And what I'm trying to get at and try to tell you guys is that being adopted is a crazy thing. And I know a lot of people, oh, you should be appreciative and, da 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 da, and you had this and that and whoop de woo. And, that's what everyone says, but you know what I'm saying? And that's great and all. And I'm not saying I'm not appreciative, but people don't get the psychological effects, you know what I mean? Or that does. You have to think about you putting this person of a whole different ethnicity into a whole nother culture and bringing them up, and they're completely forgetting about this culture. They're not, it's one thing if the family's bringing them up in that culture, but if you're not bringing them up in that culture, you're completely putting them into this other culture, and they're completely abandoned or completely forgot, completely washed aside this other culture and not even really taught to, okay, bring this up and learn about the traditions of that culture and that language, and keep them around those kind of people, or at least be around those kinds of people, so that person will be in touch with his roots and stuff like that. Then you're going to have problems. You're going to have problems, and I mean, I've seen it hella times. People growing up, uh, my eyes were open with a lot of things from just growing up, and then I didn't know nothing until my mid 20s until I met other Colombian adoptees, which was crazy. The feeling of that, talking to other people that experience the same thing you did or have the same kind of feelings and shit is incredible. Like I can't even explain it. It's like, whoa, it's crazy. And then meeting other adoptees as well. You know what I mean? Not just other Colombians, but other people, whether domestic or international. And you guys all have most of the time very similar things. Nobody can really understand that, but other adoptees. That in my life that I've personally felt. I've had a couple relationships where people did understand. They felt it. You know what I mean? They understood and they get it. They got it. Um, but I mean, other than that, no one really understands it unless they're heavily invested in the adopted community or their adoptees as well. And like I'm so fortunate. I am appreciative that I'm alive and here. You know what I mean? I'm also fortunate and appreciative to have found other adoptees, to have opened my eyes to how some things I was taught and raised and was not necessarily beneficial to me. You know what I mean? And screwed me up in the head. You know what I mean? Such as um, not having my culture brought up with me. You know what I mean? And I'm so fortunate to have met another person, another fellow Colombian adoptee who actually works in the organization of the adoptees and makes sure, like when white people adopt children of color, because it's not just from, international, it's domestic too. And when they do that, that they bring those children up with their culture. They bring those children up um, with their language if they speak another language or whatever. But they embrace them around other people that look like them. You see what I'm saying? That was so key for me. It was like growing up, I didn't have anyone that looked like me. You know what I mean? In my family and then like kind of around where I grew up and shit. You know what I mean? I was able to find, other people, you know what I mean, that, look kind of like me, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like physically really look like me, you know what I mean? And I mean, I saw that too, like on TV and stuff. You didn't see any of that shit. But so it's a trip, I'm probably gonna do another video on this because this is a heavy subject. It's a lot to talk about, a lot to say on this one. But like I said, man, it's I'm so glad that I was able to meet other adoptees and meet other people and other people that work in the community and that are out there preventing things that happen to some adoptees. You know what I mean? They're out there preventing to make sure that if you know, like white people are going to be adopting these children from these other countries, that there's certain protocols that they have to go by, that they need to embrace their culture. They need to embrace their language. They need to make sure they grow up around in an area that's around people that look like them. That is so key. And I know you guys are gonna, oh, whatever. That's great. But again, you don't you don't know. You can't put yourself in the shoes of an individual unless you've been in their shoes. I know that didn't make sense, but you get the idea. You can't put yourself in someone else's shoes unless you live their experience. You know what I mean? So you can't judge me for my experience because you don't know how I experienced. I can't judge you for your experience because I don't know how how what it was for you. You know what I mean? But anyway, I'm gonna continue with probably a part two to this, um, shortly. I just want to do a little intro and whatnot, and kind of break it down for you guys about like kind of what it's like to be adopted. Just to give you a quick run through because I don't have all the time in the world to do this shit, but you get the idea. You know what I mean?